The Carolina Panthers just flipped the whole NFC South into a story nobody was ready for. 1 week ago, people were ready to write them off after that tough loss to the Saints, talking like the season had slipped away. Then they walk into Atlanta, fall behind 21-7, and instead of folding, they answer with a 30-27 win that feels bigger than a normal regular season game. This was not just another division win. This was the moment the rest of the division had to stop and ask a real question. Are the Panthers quietly becoming the team that decides how this race ends? While Carolina was fighting back against the Falcons, the rest of the picture started to move in their favor. The Buccaneers went into Buffalo and dropped another one, their second straight loss, and now they sit at 6-4, while the Panthers climb to 6-5. That gap is tiny, and the schedule says they still have 2 chances to see Tampa face-to-face. Across the conference, everyone keeps beating each other, so a number like 10 wins might be enough to get into the playoffs. Suddenly, Carolina is not chasing a miracle. They are chasing a very real path, with every goal still in reach if they keep stacking the right kind of Sundays. The wild part is that this whole shift came on the back of their young quarterback playing the best football of his life when they needed it most. Atlanta dared Bryce Young to win it with his arm, the run game stalled, and he answered with the kind of passing show fans had been waiting to see since he came out of Alabama. If this is the version of Bryce that shows up the rest of the way, the entire NFC South has a different problem to solve. The real question now is simple. Was this just one hot afternoon, or the first sign that Bryce Young is about to change the ceiling for this team? But before we get into that, hit that like and subscribe button for more Panthers and all the NFL content. Let's aim for 200 likes on this video. Bryce Young just played the kind of game that can change how a whole fan base talks about its quarterback overnight. He did not just move the ball, he rewrote the record book. He finished with 31 completions on 45 attempts for 448 yards and 3 touchdowns, with 0 interceptions. The most passing yards any Carolina quarterback has ever had in one game, even more than Cam Newton ever put up in a single outing. That is not a normal box score. That is the kind of line that makes every defense on the schedule stop and rethink how they plan to defend this offense. What makes it even more powerful is how he did it. He took 5 sacks, played through pain after earlier ankle trouble and another hit to the leg, and still stood tall in the pocket instead of bailing out or forcing panic throws. Late in the game, you could see he was not moving like his usual self, but his mind stayed calm. He worked through reads, held safeties with his eyes, and trusted his timing over his legs. For a young quarterback who had moments this season where the field looked crowded and the windows looked late, this felt like a different player. This looked like someone who finally understood exactly where the ball needed to go and when it needed to leave his hand. The most interesting part is that he did not carry this by himself. He unlocked a version of this passing game that many people were not sure Carolina even had. The chemistry with his receivers looked sharper, the trust on contested throws looked stronger, and the entire route group suddenly played like it knew the quarterback would give them a real chance. If this is the new standard for Bryce Young, then the next piece of the story is simple. You have to look at the weapons around him and ask how much higher this offense can climb when those playmakers hit their own peak at the same time. Tyrone McMillan turned this game into his own statement without saying a word. 8 catches, 130 yards, 2 scores, but the numbers only tell part of it. He bullied smaller corners, ran through arm tackles, and kept picking up extra yards after contact like it was nothing. For a defense, that kind of size and power moving through open grass is a nightmare, and Atlanta felt that all night. On the other side, Xavier Legette finally looked like the player fans have been hoping to see on a consistent basis. His 83 yards and touchdown came on routes that showed real timing with his quarterback and real belief in his own talent. For a while there, people did not know if he would be a true number 2 option or just a highlight clip every now and then. With Jalen Coker back in the mix drawing attention, Legette did not fade into the background. Instead, he became the vertical spark this offense needed, stretching the field, forcing coverage to back up, and giving Carolina a true trio that can win in different ways on any snap. It was not just the wideouts either. Rico Dowdle chipped in as a receiver with key catches in the flat, and on checkdowns that turned broken downs into positive plays. including that long sideline gain that had everyone arguing about the boundary. Tommy Tremble came out of nowhere with a huge 54-yard grab in overtime, racing into open space and putting the game on the kicker's foot. When backs and tight ends are hurting defenses on top of the main receivers, it means the ball can go anywhere on the field. That kind of balance through the air is scary. And it becomes even more dangerous if Carolina can fix the one part that lagged behind in Atlanta, the ground game and the protection in front of it. Atlanta gave Carolina a very clear challenge. They crowded the box, crashed on every handoff, and basically announced they were willing to live with Bryce throwing if it meant shutting down the backs. The numbers tell the story. As a team, the Panthers ran for only 67 yards on 25 carries, which works out to just 2.7 yards per rush. Rico kept running into walls, Chuba had a few better snaps, but nothing ever turned into the usual steady rhythm this staff loves to build. Anytime you win a division game with that little production on the ground, you know something very different happened in the passing game. That kind of night puts a big spotlight on the big guys up front. The line had to handle a lot of long yardage situations, blitz looks, and extra bodies near the line of scrimmage. They did give up multiple sacks, and there were snaps where the pocket broke down faster than anyone would like, but there is still a strong core to work with. You have a true anchor at left tackle with Ikem Ekwonu, power and experience inside from Damian Lewis and Cade Mays, and a steady presence on the right edge in Taylor Moton. They have dealt with injuries at guard and constant shuffling, so the timing is not always perfect. Yet when the ball came out on time, you could see stretches where protection looked clean and calm. The interesting part is what this means for the rest of the season. If Carolina can take a game like this, with the ground attack stuck in neutral, and use it as a lesson for how to marry their protection, their pass calls, and their rushing schemes, they can become much harder to predict. Imagine the same group creating just a little more push on early downs, giving the back space, and then using that threat to sell play action that freezes linebackers for a step. That is how you turn one breakout through the air into a balanced offense that wears teams down. Of course, for that vision to really matter, the other side of the ball has to keep holding up its end. And the way this defense adjusted in Atlanta might be the most underrated part of the whole story. Early on, it looked like the Carolina defense was about to relive the nightmare from the Saints game, only with different names. Bijan Robinson was slicing through lanes, Drake London kept popping loose for big chunks, and Atlanta jumped out in control while Panthers fans felt that same sinking feeling. Then, Michael Penix Jr. left with a knee injury, and Ejiro Evero used that moment to completely change the tone of the game. The calls got more aggressive, the fits against the run tightened up, and instead of sitting back, Carolina started forcing the Falcons to earn every yard the hard way. Once Kirk Cousins stepped in, you could see how different the second half really was. The linebackers and safeties began triggering quicker. The tackling got cleaner, and those easy explosives to London, Kyle Pitts, and Darnell Mooney almost vanished. Derek Brown anchored the middle and kept clogging inside runs. Tershawn Wharton and Ashawn Robinson helped firm up the front, and Trevon Moehrig flew around as one of the most reliable players on the back end, making stops in space and holding up in coverage. Christian Rozeboom, who heard plenty of criticism early in the year, settled down and played his role with a lot more control, which kept the entire unit steady in long drives. The pass rush did not finish a single sack in this game, even with the coverage doing its job. That tells you the young edge group with players like Princely and Nick Scorton has to grow fast so Evero does not have to live on constant blitz calls that smart quarterbacks can solve. You can only throw so many nickel pressure looks before someone starts attacking the same void over and over. The good news is that when your secondary has real talent, you buy extra time for that front to develop. And that is where one player in particular quietly changes everything for this defense. J.C. Horn might be the most ignored shutdown corner in football right now, and that is starting to look like a big mistake from everyone outside Carolina. While people on national shows throw out names like Patrick Surtain, Derek Stingley Jr., and Christian Gonzalez, Horn just keeps lining up on the best target and taking away space. He is long, strong at the line, and patient with his eyes, which lets the coaches call coverages that many teams simply cannot trust. When you have a corner who can live on an island for entire stretches, it changes the math for everybody else on that side of the ball. The proof is already on tape. Last season, he gave quarterbacks like Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor trouble by squeezing throwing lanes until they looked uncomfortable, and this year he has carried that same form into bigger moments. Even when a star like Chris Olave gets a big play with a physical push that probably should have drawn a flag, Horn lines up right back in front of him and keeps competing at a high level. Carolina has used him on wide receivers and even on tight ends when they want to erase a safety blanket, which shows how much trust there is in his skill set. That kind of flexibility lets the coordinator mix cover one, match concepts, and late rotations without feeling like he is taking reckless chances. When you pair a true number one corner like Horn with rising pieces in the rest of the secondary, you start to see the outline of a clear identity. Trayvon Moehrig brings range and tackling from the back. Lathan Ransom has helped calm down the damage from tight ends, and together they give the front seven extra freedom to play fast without worrying that every ball over their heads will turn into a disaster. Now, this defense looks less like a group just trying to survive and more like a unit that can attack on purpose. With that backbone in place and a young quarterback heating up, the spotlight naturally moves to one more crucial factor: the head coach and the path he is trying to carve through a wide-open NFC South. Bryce Young just stepped into the part of his career where excuses disappear and expectations rise. This was not a rookie flash or a random hot streak game. He is deep enough into his time in the league that defenses know his habits and pressure looks are built to test his weaknesses. Yet, in this matchup, he answered every question with calm, toughness, and timing that looked like a veteran who has seen it all. When a young quarterback delivers that level of play in a high-stress division battle, the conversation shifts from asking if he belongs to asking how far he can take the team that believes in him. The energy around the Panthers now feels very different from the start of the season. You have a fan base that has sat through tough years, coaching changes, and constant talk about rebuilding, suddenly watching a quarterback who can light up the field and a roster that buys into each other. Bryce is not just putting up numbers. He is showing teammates that if they keep fighting, they always have a chance late in games. That kind of belief travels into every practice, every meeting, every December night when legs are tired and the standings are tight. For a locker room, it is powerful when the guy under center proves he can carry them in real time, not just in theory. Now, the NFC South becomes a test of how quickly this group can grow up. Tampa Bay still sits in front, the schedule still has heavyweights waiting, and there is no safety net if Carolina slips in key spots. The difference is that opponents no longer see a team that must win ugly. They see a unit that can score through the air, play physical defense, and finish close games. If Bryce keeps stacking smart, fearless performances, those final division matchups stop being long shots and start looking like fair fights for the crown. The only thing left is to see whether the Panthers treat this moment as a fun surprise or as the start of their push to actually take control of the NFC South race.